It's Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 97. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy tells the EU that this is Merica, and I order an Uber with my watch kit. But we start tonight with the EU, apparently forgetting where Google is based.
Yes, so news this week was that the EU Parliament decided that Google needed to be broken up. Now, an important thing to note here is that the EU Parliament is not the actual body that has any power to do anything about this. That's the European Commission,
Right.
As opposed to the European Parliament. The European Commission is the one that has been hearing the antitrust cases for Google, and has been really setting all of these standards for the right to be forgotten and everything like that. But European Parliament, in a what seems to be solely political move, has symbolically voted to break up Google into the internet search part and then all of the other stuff that Google does. So in this world, Google search would be a standalone entity, a standalone company, and then all of the Drive, the Google Plus, Maps, all of the applications would be totally separate from the search engine.
Huh.
Because, as we've covered before, in Europe, Google has something like 90% of the market share, which is kind of a problem for them. But the interesting thing about this is not that the EU hates Google, because we've known that for years. But really, the U.S.'s response, because lest we forget, Google is an American company. So the U.S. mission to the European Union said in an email that it, quote, noted with concern the Parliament's calling for breaking up Google, and said, quote, it is important that the process of identifying competitive harms and potential remedies be based on objective and impartial findings and not be politicized, end quote. So, Trey, do you think that Google really has anything to fear from this mock of a government that is known as the European Parliament? And should they actually be concerned about the European Commission getting involved?
I think they should be concerned about what Europe's doing, because Europe seems to be doing some strange... crazy
bastards.
They're doing some strange things with regards to kind of the big U.S. tech companies, but particularly to Google. And they also do weird... Let's keep in mind, they do weird things to Amazon, too. Google is not alone in kind of getting treated weird in Europe.
And they did this to Microsoft a number of years ago with making it so that when you install, I think it was XP, that when you install XP, it has to give you the choice: do you want to install Internet Explorer, or do you want to install Chrome, or do you want to install Firefox?
Or no, it was also even more. It was a lottery.
Yeah, and Opera.
So it was like Opera.
It was the best thing in the world for Opera.
Yeah.
But so this has been going on for years with Europe. American tech companies.
Right. And, I always joke about the U.S. government is run by people who don't like government. The European, especially the EU, is run by people who really like government. Like, really.
It's run by the Germans.
The Germans and the French. And it's people who, live in actual socialist countries. It's a phenomenal idea that there are real socialists out there in the world. I think they would meet with some pushback at some point if they actually tried to enact this. I mean, keep in mind, no one managed to split up Microsoft back in the day. And Google does not have nearly the lock-in that Microsoft does, or did. Back in the Windows 95 days, what else was there? You either were on Microsoft's platform or you weren't.
Or you're running Unix.
And those were some of the darker days for the Mac. So
that was pre-Jobs.
Oh, that was pre-return second.
Yeah, that was pre-Second Coming,
'Cause that's
post
97.
falling apart.
Right. I mean, this is, these were real bad days for the Mac. So there really was just Windows 95, and that was it. 98, same way.
Right.
So I don't think that Google will actually get split up. Also, how do you even do that? I understand conceptually, but you have to realize that it is all Google. That is to say that Google
It all feeds into itself.
Well, Google as an entity, as a single thing, organism, life, digital
consciousness,
digital consciousness, is a bunch of super servers interconnected across the world.
It hurt you.
Yes, Google hears it's okay. They think if Google has become self-aware, it would just speed up search results. So it's fine.
Which I'm okay with.
Which, at some point, if it hasn't already, Google will become self-aware. We should be okay. Again, one of its core mottos is do no evil. So
thank you, Sergey.
It's okay. What would you do? You say, well, these servers aren't part of Google. Like, this isn't like a manufacturing company where there's different plants. And you can say, okay, like when they split up Nokia, right? Oh, well, you can take the plants in China and we'll keep the patents. Now, Google as a service they're just servers that all do different things and in some ways all do the same thing. It's all storage and indexing. It's just what they're storing and what they're indexing. So are they indexing your email? Are they indexing the web? Are they indexing the contents of your cell phone?
And the other interesting thing is that this is a specifically Europe problem, because if you look at the United States, we don't have Google is a dominant search engine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They have 60 to 65% of the market share in the United States,
which is down from where
it used to be up in the 80s, and then Bing happened, and Google's like, go Bing, go Bing, go,
right?
Because
in some ways,
because it was right around the time that Bing came out is when the U.S. started looking into Google for antitrust, but then Bing started to really establish itself and have the Bing It ads
and Bing and Decide.
Bing and Decide. Those were great ads, but they've gotten to Bing is out, I think, at 10 to 15%, and Yahoo has some kind of similar percentage.
Who powers Yahoo Search?
No, it's Bing. So it's all
Bing. There's
we're basically 30% Microsoft and 60 to 70% Google, and then 5% Babelfish. Whatever. I don't know what people are using these days.
DuckDuckGo.
Alta Vista.
Ask Jeeves. Dogpile.
Which, by the way, I think is also powered by Bing.
Well, yes, Alta Vista. Yes, it's all. It's pretty much all Bing now.
But the point is that if you look at Microsoft and you look at Yahoo, they're both doubling down on that kind of server-based offering of different services. With Microsoft, you look at Office 365, you look at Xbox Live, you look at OneDrive, Xbox Music, those Skype. 4 services, and Skype. Those 5 services match up very similarly to Google's offerings.
Sure.
And I would argue are better.
In some ways, they're also more expensive.
Ways. They're more expensive. They're more geared towards the high-end consumer and corporate market. Except for Skype, everyone uses Skype.
I love OneDrive. My life is now. I feel like we've been having this same discussion all year long. My
life has actually shifted into OneDrive, which is really interesting.
Yeah, ever since
more on that on the other show, but
ever since I got my Surface Pro 3, and Emory switched over to Office 2013, or Office 365, my life is in OneDrive, and I've been really happy with that. I think Google gets a lot of attention because it's free and it was first in terms of popular consciousness of kind of moving your life to the web.
And they make all of their money from advertising.
Right. But I think Google Docs, I've always found Google Docs a weak offering. People's like, oh, it does everything I need. It doesn't do everything I need. So.
Well, but one of the things we have to remember is that you and I are power
I'm
users
certain of document
and
creation software.
document
Certainly.
creation software because we have, we kind of used Microsoft Word when it was in and Excel when they were in their like peak efficiency for what we needed. Now
Sure,
they've gotten
yeah.
better in a lot of ways. Like for example, I was really happy when I moved from Office 2003 to Office 2007 because it increased the amount of text that I could have in a single cell within Excel.
Oh, that makes a big difference.
I went from 2,048 characters to 9,000 whatever. The next multiply that times 4, and that's how many. 4 times as many characters, which was awesome because I was running into that problem where I was running over with really like nested if statements that, it wasn't the most efficient way to do it, but it was the way I was doing
worked.
it.
Look,
It fixed my problem.
You can make Excel do some terrible and wonderful things.
Yeah, you can also make it. You used to be able to lock it up. I think that was one of the other things in 2007. They added the ability to like get out of a circular reference. It said, "This is a circular reference. We ran it 100 times. What do you want to do?"
See, I miss being able to run Microsoft Flight Simulator from within Excel. That was the best like Excel feature.
But so we have a high expectation for our document processing.
Sure, but
applications.
I think Google Drive is not as usable as OneDrive or Dropbox, and I'm really critical of Dropbox. Not because of their software, but because of their pricing.
Their pricing is horrible.
It's gotten better.
OneDrive is the best because it does natively integrate with with Windows.
With Windows and with Word Online.
Now, my biggest problem has been with OneDrive that I can't figure out how to get the I can't figure out where it's stored and when it decides to offload it from my machine and when it stores it on my machine, and that's something that they're not very good at describing.
It sounds like if rumors are true, in the Windows 10, the latest version of the Windows 10 preview, they're starting to address that issue.
Okay, I'm going to boot it up then and get myself upgraded.
And Windows 8.1 shows you has a column that says available offline or not.
Right. No, I did know that, but like on my Windows 7 machine, it's really not obvious. And of course, this is my machine where I do all of my image processing that I'm backing up. Anyways, we're totally off the rails.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the EU splitting up Google, good luck. Try it.
Well, and it's going to run into this really interesting problem of if they really, really go for it, it's a U.S. company.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it has offices and it is a multinational. It is probably structured in some really screwed up ways for tax reasons. So for all we know, it's probably based in Luxembourg. I mean, who knows? The Cayman. I mean, I think actually Google's EU office is Luxembourg because it's for taxes.
I think that Google, like most multinational companies, has like regions. So.
Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons for the Nokia acquisition from Microsoft is they didn't want to onshore that cash. And so rather than onshore that cash, bring it back into the U.S., they just bought Nokia instead. And it may have
cheaper, probably.
May have saved them money. So speaking of small consumer electronic products, we've got some updates on what Apple's Watch Kit. This came November 18th. About what Apple's Watch Kit, the software that runs Apple Watch, is going to be like. And there's a lot of details. There's a 30-minute kind of. They released, some developer stuff, and so people have been picking through the developer stuff about how to write. You can now actually go in and start writing your own Apple Watch apps through WatchKit. They released all this kind of documentation relating to WatchKit. And so we finally get a sense of what is this watch really going to do? And the simple answer is the watch is in essence a dumb display. The watch is not doing the processing. The phone is doing the processing. You cannot have an watch app that is not also an iOS 8 app. Those two have to go together. So the watch app is the supplement, for right now, is the supplement to your existing kind of big app on the bigger device, your phone.
So that would mean if you wanted to have something that would really only make sense as a watch app, you'd have to install a separate app on your phone that would companion with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Native apps are coming next year, which
Okay.
would be the kind of the way around this. But for right now, it needs to be there needs to be a corresponding app on the phone to power the watch app, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Also, they talk a lot about they released the sizes. So the small ones, 272 pixels by 340 pixels. The big ones, 312 pixels by 390 pixels. So not big. These are Retina screens, though.
It's important to know.
And it starts to talk about like how the notifications are going to work. So there's kind of two classes of notifications that you're able to use. There's a short look that is just like a really short, like, hey, your flight's boarding now, go. And then long look, where you're actually able to like give them things that they'll need to scroll through and swipe through.
So that would be like emails. For
Emails, text messages. It also gives you like the ability to reply or favorite or comment or whatever. Apple's getting really strict about the gesturing. So there's going to be I can go through it, there's going to be a very set gesture language that all apps are going to have to listen to. There's no custom gestures.
Interesting.
Which makes sense in a way. I mean, again, this is Apple.
Well, it unifies the device and makes it everything seems like it was designed together.
Right.
Which is very Apple.
Right. And luckily, you won't be able to interact with maps on the Apple Watch. Maps will only be a static screen. There's no going to be like pinching and zooming through the map on your watch.
Because that would be dumb.
Thank God. In other news, there's a font that goes with this called San Francisco.
Oh my God.
I'll save you the details on the font. But it's designed to scale better for that screen. So it's thin. It plays with typefacing in a way that's supposed to be better for this screen. So, is there anything within those announcements that stand out to you?
I like that maps are static.
Yeah.
Because it just prevents people from doing stupid things. Like, it really does.
Which I think is half of what's wrong with Android Wear, is it's like, oh, no, you can just do the dumbest things.
I mean, okay, let's see, what else did we get here? I think it's interesting that they said that, okay, so it's all about that the watch is an extension of your iPhone, and I understand that, but it's interesting to me that Apple is going with you can do, this year you can do companion apps, but then next year we're going to do native apps?
Yep.
So is that going to... It makes me wonder if this hardware is going to then be obsolete. If they're what's Apple worried about there?
Well, I think some of it, we forget, because it doesn't happen all that often, that Apple doesn't actually usually have the software all together at Gen 1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember, the App Store doesn't come until much later in the iPhone's life cycle that we actually got the App
those
Store.
3GS?
3G or 3GS, something like that.
It was somewhere in there. I think it was 3GS.
Yeah, because when I first got my 3G, there wasn't really apps. At least as I remember it. But I mean, it launched with like just this web app standard. And then that changed over time. It launched that copy and paste. I mean, that didn't come until later. And that was crazy. I remember I was blogging during the Gaza uprising in 2009, and I got to a point where the only thing I had signal on was my phone. And so I was writing like hundreds and hundreds word blog posts on my phone, and this is back when only certain apps would give you the horizontal keyboard.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that
So
was
I
a
had
big
to
thing.
download a special app that would trick my phone into letting me write these blog posts on a horizontal keyboard that was designed mostly for the web browser, and then kludge a copy. It was awful.
App Store was released the day before the 3G was.
Okay, 3G. That's kind of okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So Apple has a history of kind of being very deliberate about its software rollout and the software features it adds in, and it is willing to be behind on features for, they can go, so we get it right or whatever. But they have shown consistently that they are willing to be behind on software features for their own reasons, and do this in a very deliberate, measured way. Now, we can debate what's better, but I think in this wearables category, we've been saying all along that less is more.
Less is more. And that's my, I still adore the Pebble. I'm really worried that come January, my Pebble is going to be obsolete, in that they can't keep rolling with this same hardware, but they've got to make something obsolete from the original Pebble.
Right.
But it's less is more. It's a watch first, and I love it as a watch. It's an excellent watch. And then it also provides the notifications, and I've trimmed down the notifications that it provides because it was just getting ridiculous.
Sure.
And that's the way you want it, really.
The Apple Watch is, certainly less limited. It is certainly more full-featured than the Pebble, but it is, in a way, it is Apple's philosophy of control. I think my favorite thing right now about this is that the watch isn't doing the processing.
Right.
That gives me hope on two levels.
Battery.
One, battery. Right? This is not doing its own processing. Thank God. Two, it makes it, there is a chance that it means it won't be obsolete in a year. Because if the phone's doing the processing, and this is essentially a fancy version of Mirrorcast, with its own UI, but again, that's all being powered by the phone and pushed, and then cached on the watch. There's very little processing happening on the watch. That means that this device might have more than a year in it. And given the pricing that we're hearing, I think that's really important. It's got to. I mean, that's essential, because I have committed it, and I probably will buy one. But the one I want's gonna be $500, and that's a lot of money.
That's real money.
That's real money. My iPhone 6
Unlocked
Plus
would cost $200 more than that.
Right, but that's for an iPhone. Something you actually kind of not need, but can really get a lot of use at. This, right now, looking at it, I'm going to buy it because I'm an early adopter, and I want to be able to talk about it on the internet. Looking at what it does, there is not a $500 value proposition for me in this yet. I need to see more.
Well, that's I think that they can get somewhere near there with quality, but the battery life, I think, is going to be the thing that is going to really decide how valuable it is.
Maybe. I keep going back to what are you going to do with it? So there was this article I read. I think it was on GigaOM. Where was it? Yeah, GigaOM. Where GigaOM held this conference, and one of Google's Google Glass developer guys got on stage and talked about wearable UI, and that the idea is that it's purely contextual and doesn't take you away from reality. It helps just enhance reality a little bit, but really the puppies and beautiful things is the point. The world is the point, and this is just information to help you with the world. And looking down at your smartphone gets in the way of that, because then you get really distracted and you're sucked in by the screen. And instead, Google Glass sitting right here gives you just those little bursts of information that you need. And then that's really kind of the goal for wearables. I get that to a point, specifically with Google Glass. Well, I look at the watch market and go, I mean, I like the idea of wearing a watch, and I like the idea of my watch being able to give me notifications. How much, like, how much more do I want? What do I really want a 2-inch display to do other than show me? Do I want to be able to? I don't want to be able to respond. Do I really want to be able to respond from my wrist?
Well, that's the voice thing, and the only thing that I've seen that makes sense is the Moto X style. Okay, Google, and then it goes and does its thing.
If I'm alone in a
Right.
quiet area,
Right.
but
Otherwise, no, you don't want that.
right. But here, my point is if I'm alone in a quiet area, I have my phone, my laptop, my studio computer. Presumably, like, I'm in my office or in my house or in my studio, and
What does it matter?
What does it matter? That doesn't help. The watch seems to be like the on-the-go, in social settings kind of device, where it's a little easier to just kind of check the bare minimum of information that you need, how to get where you're walking, who's messaging me in a meeting. I would love a RunP app that like vibrates your wrist when it's a good time in the movie to go to the bathroom.
Oh, that would be awesome.
See? So, like, there are some, but it's the kind of bare minimum, but in social settings where pulling out your phone would be taking you away from the experience. So am I going to, like, tap out a message? No, I guess I'm going to draw the dumb pictures with my emoji or whatever. Because I'm often, like, just purely expressing emotions in my text message, not trying to convey actual information.
Nope.
So,
I don't know if there's $500 worth
Right.
of value in this product at this stage.
The fitness aimed one's gonna be a little cheaper from what we're hearing.
Well,
That
and the
might be
fitness aimed. So here's the thing: the fitness aimed one will be cheaper and probably have more value.
Well, no, I mean they're gonna have all the same features. It's about materials.
Right.
So the fitness ones, made from the cheaper materials, and so I mean it's gonna have the heart rate sensing and all that. It's gonna be baked in there. And so maybe I have to start thinking about it as more than just the notifications thing. It is constantly monitoring my heart. It does have Apple Pay, which isn't that big a deal because Apple Pay is proving to be somewhat useless at the moment. I keep trying to use it and then not being able to.
Well, I keep trying to use the Google Wallet at places because, like, if it takes Apple Pay, it takes Google Wallet.
Generally speaking,
I've yet to be able to make it work, and they always look at me. They're like, "Yeah, it hasn't been working. I don't know why." Every time.
Right, because retailers are dumb and they think they're going to roll out this QR code based BS. So speaking of BS, Uber. Now, Uber's been taking a lot of heat lately, and
Uber.
I am a pretty
Sometimes
avid,
it's smarter to keep your mouth shut.
and they don't know how. So Uber wants to add a feature. So they've got to deal with Spotify.
This is a terrible idea.
You can build a playlist that will, when your Uber shows up, your music will already be playing in your Uber, in the car.
These poor Uber drivers.
These poor drivers. So of course,
I would love to do this just to mess with an
I'm
Uber
going to do
driver.
this once so that I can sit down in a down car and have the final countdown blaring. Because I think just once that would be hysterical. The drivers can still select how loud the music is, so it's a little less unsafe. And it has to be a car that has an aux jack. And not all cars do, though, at this point in history, most do.
I would assume that most of the black cars do.
So I don't know, the town cars, I mean, keep in mind, most of the black cars I'm taking are town cars.
True.
And they stopped making the town car a long time ago.
It's true.
Long time ago. And they're just now kind of...
I've ridden a Taurus town car.
Yeah. Lately, the black cars I've been getting have been either Merc E-Class. His past two have been Merc E-Classes. Or one was a Lincoln MKZ, which is the Taurus.
Those are the no. The MKZ is the smaller. The S is the
Yes, it was
Taurus.
whatever the Taurus-based Lincoln is.
Yeah. Sorry, I just think of that as a Taurus.
It is. Yes, but I mean that's kind of always been Lincoln's. I mean,
It's
the
a
town car
Taurus
is just
with all of the features.
the town car is just a Crown Vic with a better interior. I mean, like a lot better interior.
like a lot better.
Like, you know,
If you're in a town car, you're going to somewhere fancy. If you're in a Crown Vic, you're going to jail
or the airport.
Or the airport. Kind of the same thing.
Kind of the same thing. You're gonna get strapped into a thing and stuck for a while, and slowly lose all of my dignity. I'm talking specifically about the airport right now. all of my dignity.
In a cab.
I like Uber, because I am not into ride sharing. I am not into someone's normal car with a mustache on it. If I am doing this, I want something that's...
I saw one of those in Houston the other day.
Lyft is big here. If I'm doing this for me specifically, I'm not doing it all the time. So when I am doing it, it's a cab replacement, and I might as well pay basically the same money for a nicer experience. I went to Uber because I think cabs are terrible.
Oh, I hate cabs.
Not because I thought cabs are too expensive. This is all too expensive. But cab, I broke my foot in 2012 just as Uber was getting started here in Atlanta, and I was having to take cabs every day. Every day I was having to take cabs, and they were dirty and they were grimy, and there was the awkward payment dance, and Uber streamlined all of that. I hit a button, a town car showed up, cost basically the same as a cab, water waiting for me in the cup holder, immaculately clean. That's what Uber is for me. Uber is
and the drivers are very polite.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no money dance at the end. You get out.
You just get out.
Have a good day. You too.
So,
done.
While they are portraying perhaps a premium product, they have also adapted somewhat of a premium attitude.
Yeah. You say that again.
Yeah.
Jobs would be proud.
No. I mean, no, because they've lost message control.
Oh,
that's
true.
They have lost it. Like, Jobs, we only found out that Jobs was this, like, flaming, horrendous person in many ways from the authorized biography by Walter Isaacson. That's what really came out, just like how there were rumors and speculation, but like we found out how much of a hard ass he was because of Isaacson in some ways. Uber is just out there. They're just like that's different from the Balmer. This is more of a swinging motion. The Balmer is more like, and I don't care. This is like a I'm out here kind of motion.
So what you're telling me is it's a combination of the Steve Jobs and the Steve Ballmer, a combination that should never occur.
Right, it's the I'm really mad and I don't care. So, Uber executive Emil Michael told journalists that this was supposed to be off the record, that they think they should, that, you know, they have considered investigating journalists because journalists have been really hard on them lately, and specifically singling out Pando Daily's editor, Sarah Lacey, because she's been doing a lot of research and really been kind of out there banging the anti-Uber drum. So they suggested they were going to start investigating her personal life where's the quote? A particular and very specific claim about her personal life that they would be able to prove with these researchers. Now, again, this was supposed to be off the record.
And they were kidding.
Well, they've said they were kidding.
Okay. It sounds like something that was said kind of in a ha-ha, but seriously.
Right. Okay, so it's like a tacit threat when the tape recorders were not supposed to be rolling. Now, the BuzzFeed reporter who reported this, it's funny saying the phrase BuzzFeed reporter, but yeah, I'll deal with that.
It's a BuzzFeed reporter.
It's a BuzzFeed. Didn't get the hint, and so wasn't aware that this was off the record, and so it kind of got out there, and they've been doing damage control, and they've been having to deal with state's attorney general and the US FTC and all the mess over driver poaching and how they treat their drivers, and they are an embattled brand or an embattled company at the moment, because there is this perception that they are honey badgers, that they just don't care, and they're going to do whatever they want, and they're going to use whatever business tactics they want.
But they are honey badgers.
Well, and that was great that they were honey badgers when they were taking on the cab companies, which universally we all don't like. But now that
they're taking on journalists.
Well, now they're taking on other entities, their own drivers, Lyft, whatever, and kind of the attitude towards Uber has changed. For me, I'm not participating in the Uber boycott because fundamentally, I don't take Uber all that often, and B, Lyft doesn't provide the service I'm looking for. I am not looking to ride around in someone's hatchback with a mustache on the front. I'm just like, I'll just take my own darn car.
I don't know, that Peugeot we took in random Spain northern town.
Yep, just like that. So yeah, when we were
Astorga.
Yeah.
I remember where it was.
Yeah, I mean,
that was pretty nice. That was like that dude's car.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of how.
Put a pink mustache on there, I'd still ride in that car.
Right, but that was like a Peugeot in Spain when I didn't have access to my own vehicle, and in cities like San Francisco or New York, where it is viable to not own your own vehicle, maybe it's different, and Lyft might be more viable. But for me specifically, if I'm looking for a cab replacement, that's better. Not that's more fun or wackier.
Yeah, I've taken both.
Wacky is
Lyft.
not what I'm looking for in my car service.
Yeah, I've taken both Lyft and Uber. We took Lyft coming back, ironically, from an Uber semi-sponsored event, ACL. Uber had an ACL code, so you could take $30 worth of Uber.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they do a lot of this kind of deals.
Which makes a lot of sense for ACL specifically, but I'm sure that rates were through the roof. Because of surge pricing. But as a result of that, Lyft did not have surge pricing. And so we took Lyft. One of the people I was with had Lyft credit. And so it ended up costing like $20 for us to go about 5 miles. So it wasn't all that bad. It was less than what the Uber would have been. And it was like this old car. The guy was really nice.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of the reputation Lyft has. That they're
just a dude.
Nice people, but...
I didn't fist bump him, unfortunately.
Oh God!
I missed my opportunity.
No, they ever try to fist bump me, I'm just gonna look at them like, "What are you? No,
don't touch
don't
me.
Touch me. Don't touch me. This is not fun. Don't touch me."
I took Uber. I took an Uber Suburban for my birthday. We were going to a Mexican restaurant and wanted to have drinks, and so we did the responsible thing and took Uber. And I felt clean.
Right.
So I like Uber. Now, granted, it costs an arm and a leg for how far we went, but
sure,
a cab would have cost the same.
Cab would have cost the same and would not have been as nice.
I've taken a cab that distance before, and it was less convenient and it was dirty.
It was dirty. I have.
And the guy got lost. The cab driver got lost.
And then there's the payment. Uber does need to get their corporate messaging back on track. They have a messaging problem. They need to be a little less honey badgers in this market.
They need to grow up as a company. They need to appeal to the businessman because that is truly their market.
Well, I think some of it is they need to. It's clearly a company run by 20-somethings acting like 20-somethings, and they need to grow up in terms of corporate culture. I think is part of this issue that it's. It feels like, some interns at Goldman got together and formed a company with that
just reread that book, yes.
Yeah, with that same kind of attitude. So, speaking of what the interns at Goldman can spend their money on, tell me about Black Friday.
Black Friday. Another one of those high holy days of tech goodness where people line up for days on end to get... God. A scant few selections
at $330 Xboxes.
Yeah, well, those were going hot and heavy all weekend, starting Black Friday Eve on Thursday night and running all the way through Cyber Monday.
Gray Thursday, also known as Thanksgiving. I hate that. I'm sorry.
The public service announcement: we don't like the fact that stores open on Thanksgiving.
Like, I'm not, I
These
am a
all
pastor.
go directly to hell.
I am, generally speaking, not one of those, like, family, I'm not like a focus on the family. I'm
You're not a family values
I'm a
conservative?
progressive theologian. However, that does not mean I don't value families, and this is like ruining it. It drives me so
Thanksgiving
crazy.
is all about togetherness.
Or
And
not.
Black Friday is all about not togetherness.
Or let's just look at it this way. Thanksgiving is a guaranteed day off for wage workers.
That too.
So, like, why have we taken away this guaranteed day off for wage workers and turned it into a hellacious experience? That's my issue.
Yeah.
Whether you're hanging out with family or not, that's not my whole deal. It's they had this day off that was kind of sacrosanct, and we found a way to take it away.
So,
anyways, Black Friday.
Black Friday. I know that I did some Black Friday shopping from the comfort of my office chair because I did have to work on Black Friday. And I think that I got as good a deals as could probably have been gotten on Black Friday. One thing that I noticed this year more so than in previous years is that a lot of the sales extended to online. So there were, you had your normal doorbusters like you have at Walmart, Target, and such every year. But as far as electronics and even non-electronics, but specifically electronics, games, things like that, Amazon had a lot of specials going on Friday. Best Buy had extended most of their sales onto the internet as well, which caused their website to go down.
Yep, everybody, just downness. I had Amazon go down on me twice on Friday.
Oh, you had Amazon go? I didn't have Amazon go down on me.
It may have been. It may have been because I was doing this in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which does not have the best in these kind of these property management companies do not install the best internet. But we were consistently having issues getting onto Amazon. Now, whose fault is that?
No, I was using corporate guaranteed internet in downtown Houston, and Best Buy was down. I texted Trey at about 9:30 Central Time and said, "So Black Friday broke Best Buy."
Yep. See, for me, Black Friday is such a non-tech holiday.
No, it's good for other stuff.
Because most of I have noticed, and maybe this has gotten better recently. Certainly, it's better with games. I mean, some of those games,
games is where you really save is on Black Friday,
right? Because like Shadows of Mordor for $45, it's one of the best games of this year.
I got Shadows of Mordor for $25.
Right. That's totally more than 50% off. Shadows of Mordor, current game, absolutely will be in our discussion for top 5.
You could get Xbox One bundle, the Assassin's Creed bundle, for $330. That included.
That's only $20 off.
Yeah.
So that's for most of the tech that's worth buying. The discounts aren't that steep. It's mostly like $250 laptop that is not worth the circuit board it's printed on.
Right. $250 laptop that's being sold for $220.
Right. So most of the
TVs are the other thing you really save money on because they're trying to clear out stock.
And actually, usually year-old TVs are fine because image quality doesn't ever improve that much. It's the services that really change year to year, and you don't want those anyways.
And the Vizio TVs this year are pretty good, so just get those.
Yeah, as ever.
All of them, just any of them, just pick one.
I bought a year-old Vizio back in May. I love it. A 47-inch. I absolutely love it. So TVs, but again, how often are you buying a TV? People buy them
every 5 to 7 years.
Every 5 to 7 years.
I think that's the predicted timeline for a TV. But yeah, the TVs are not something that people buy that often. But Black Friday was huge. I think that the story this year for Black Friday was really online.
Sure.
And this is kind of bleeding into this week, but Cyber Monday this year, it was kind of a dud.
Well, it's because I think they've gotten smart and they've realized that it is now just shopping. So it doesn't need to be Black Friday and Cyber Monday. In fact, so I do every year, Sydney's cousin Emily and I, we go to the outlet stores at in the Outer Banks on Black Friday at like 6 o'clock in the morning, right when they open. This is where I do like my clothes shopping for the year and get Ray-Ban sunglasses for $50.
Right.
Okay, and they do this every year. This year, Emily has a 3G iPad. She was buying clothes from Banana Republic in the car while we were driving to the outlets. Online is now just an integral part of Black Friday. That was an amazing American corporate experience.
Yeah, I mean, it will be all through the holidays because Black Friday is just the time when most people gravitate to the stores. And it's still just a giant scheme to get you in the doors with the sales that they have on, specifically for tech items. They have ridiculous sales on
tech
TVs.
Items you don't want.
But they'll sell you 3 TVs to everybody.
Right.
No, there's no more than 3 of them.
Right.
And once they're gone, they're gone. And guess what? Now the super expensive TV is the one that's left. And you came in for a TV. Are you going to walk out with that one?
Right.
No, you're not. You're going to buy that
in line
TV.
and you did this. You did this dumb dance.
Or even better, you came in to buy a game. You went into Best Buy. You came in to buy a game. You said, I want Shadows of Mordor for $25. So you go to the back of the store and you pick up Shadows of Mordor. And between the front and the back of the store, and then from the back to the front, you picked up like 18 other things.
Right.
And guess what? They just made money on all of that.
Right. And most of those aren't deeply discounted.
Or discounted at all.
Or discounted at all.
This is why online shopping, for me, helps me keep my eye on the prize. I bought a Blu-ray player for 75% off.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Is this one of the ones with like Netflix baked in?
Yeah, it's got all the stuff in it.
Cool.
It's a 4-star rated CNET Blu-ray player.
It's a good Blu-ray player.
It is not for me. I have 2 devices. Well, if you count this computer, 3 devices that play Blu-ray movies.
Yeah. Yeah, PS4, Xbone, and your PC.
Yeah.
I
for me.
I actually have 2 hooked up to my media center now as well. I have my Xbone and my media PC.
Yeah.
All of which run Blu-ray. Great. So speaking of the internet just becoming part of life, it's this week's last call. So the city of New York wants to do something interesting. They're going to launch. They are in the process of launching free gigabit speed Wi-Fi throughout the entire city of New York.
But Trey, where are they going to put it?
They're replacing phone booths with these Wi-Fi kiosks that broadcast internet and then also have a bunch of that has like a touch screen built into it where you can like make free phone calls anywhere in the US and access city services and make emergency phone calls and all kinds of stuff. It's a public-private partnership called Link NYC. So it's the City of New York, the Mayor's Office of Technology, Titan, which is an advertising company, the Control Group, which does advertising as well, Qualcomm, which does networking technology.
Right.
Full disclosure, my uncle works for Qualcomm, and a hardware manufacturer called Comark. And so they're actually kind of slick looking, but the idea
they're very modern looking.
Yeah. So gigabit Wi-Fi. So you're getting, they claim 2-hour high-def movie in 30 seconds. Boom. And that'll be free, and they're going to make it up on advertising so that these Wi-Fi kiosks serve as place for display advertising, and that's how they're going to fund it. And they're
fascinating.
And they think, the estimates are $500 million in revenue over the next 12 years.
If New York City can make this work, New York City, the largest city in the U.S., can make this work on advertising. Yes and no, right? So, well, they're also one of the most densely populated.
Right, and then that's the thing. Like New York, they want to begin this in 2015, and the plan is to install up to 10,000 of these across the 5 boroughs. You can do that in New York because New York it's not tiny, but it's condensed. It's concentrated. You get out to Long Island, it gets a little less concentrated, but it's still a concentrated area. You look at a city
they have this They have an
Atlanta.
existing infrastructure of a lot of phone booths.
A lot of phone booths and like sidewalks and like this works in New York. This doesn't work in Houston or Atlanta.
Definitely
or
does
Kansas
not work
City.
in Houston. Most things that involve a dense population do not work in Houston.
Right, because although it is
Houston hates the light rail. You want to know why? Because the light rail doesn't drive 45 miles outside the city in all directions.
the light rail. Look, that whole thing was a cluster. Like that whole thing just never went right.
It made more than what their projected was. That's why they've expanded it, because it exceeded the expectations.
Really,
It did.
it certainly didn't live up to mine.
Exactly.
On that note, it's time to end. Thank you so much for joining us for this sort of oddly spread out episode of Text Last Call. If you have any feedback for the show, podcast at textlastcall.com, facebook.com/textlastcall, pinterest.com/textlastcall, or at Text Last Call on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. I want this, let's be clear. But
Of course you do.
This is one of those, this works in New York, but what about Kansas?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Well, actually,
in Kansas.
Kansas City.
Well, Kansas City has Google Fi, so they're fine.
That's in Missouri. That's not where you're